Hey co-stars, welcome to another episode of Generation Films. My name is British Ben. Now, in this episode, we are going to be talking about every version of the Enterprise in Star Trek. But first of all, I'll just explain my rules for this. We have to have actually seen the ship either on the screen as a physical ship, as a model, a picture, in the movies, TV shows, or video games for it to count, okay? There may be some other versions of the Enterprise in books or, fan art or whatever. Those aren't going to count. Sorry guys, but restrain your anger. There are more important things to worry about, like this.
I would like to return your quote-unquote ultimate belt. Do you have a receipt? No, I do not have a receipt. I won it as a door prize at the Star Trek convention, although I find their choice of prize highly illogical, as the average Trekker has no use for a medium-sized belt.
Number 1. The HMS Enterprise that we see in the opening credits of, well, Enterprise. I will see my dream come alive at last. This ship was a British naval vessel. Note the designation HMS, which stands for His Majesty's Ship or Her Majesty's Ship, depending on the monarch. It is unclear which Enterprise this ship is in the British Royal Navy because they have had 15 ships by the name Enterprise. Look, this is the current one. Isn't she glorious as she sails the seven seas defending the realm? Oh yeah, back to the content, right. So the one in the opening credits of Enterprise is more likely to be one of the British naval ships from the 17th or 18th centuries. It could be this one that the British captured from the French in 1705, or maybe this British Arctic discovery ship HMS Enterprise. And an exploration vessel would certainly fit the spirit of Star Trek, but in reality the writers never base it off of a specific ship. Number 2. The USS Enterprise on the Enterprise D's holodeck. This is the ship where Worf walks the plank and Data misunderstands humor.
Data? That was not funny.
This is another one that it's unclear which ship exactly it is supposed to be, but the ship you see on screen is reminiscent of a 19th century brig. So the most likely contender could be the USS Enterprise that was launched in 1799 that was at one time rigged as a brig. In the movie, the ship was portrayed by the Lady Washington, which was also used as HMS Interceptor in Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. Number 3. And the last seafaring vessel on our list is the United States Navy USS Enterprise CVN-65. A Kitty Hawk class ship, she was the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier and served from 1961 to the year 2012. This is the ship in Star Trek IV that Chekhov and Uhura steal nuclear energy from to repair the damaged dilithium crystal on their stolen Klingon bird of prey that they'd used to travel back to 20th century Earth.
We apparently are getting a power drain. I mean, it must be coming from inside the ship.
Number 4. Space Shuttle Enterprise. The Enterprise Space Shuttle is also seen in the opening credits of Enterprise. As a picture in Captain Archer's office, as a picture in Star Trek the Motion Picture, and as a model in Admiral Marcus's office in the J.J. Abrams films. The Enterprise Space Shuttle was the prototype for humanity's first ever reusable spacecraft. Officially. But it never actually flew in space though. It was flown up into the air on a plane and then released, and they would use it to test the atmospheric flight capabilities and the landing capabilities of the Space Shuttle. Here's the original Star Trek cast with Gene Roddenberry in front of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. The craft is currently on display at the Intrepid Air and Space Museum in New York. Number 5. The Enterprise XCV-330. This was actually one of the original designs for the Starship Enterprise in the original series, but it was abandoned because it was thought that the model wouldn't be strong enough to support itself during filming. Gene Roddenberry later asked for the ship to be used for a cameo appearance in Star Trek the Motion Picture, and you can see it here. It also makes an appearance in the J.J. Abrams films as a model on Admiral Marcus's desk. The ship is described in the book The Making of Star Trek the Motion Picture as the very first Starship Enterprise. Number 6. The Enterprise NX-01. This is the first actual Starfleet Starship Enterprise that we get to in this video. It was developed by Henry Archer and Zephram Cochrane, the inventor of warp drive, as a starship that would allow humanity to explore space within a reasonable time frame without the need for freezing or stasis of human bodies. The ship was equipped with Starfleet's first Warp 5 engine, which allowed for interstellar travel within a human's natural lifetime. i.e., you wouldn't leave behind your daughter who looked like this when you left, but come back only to find her looking like this. But anyway, the Enterprise NX-01 solved those kind of 21st century problems. The ship was 225 meters long, it had 7 decks, and was equipped with 4 shuttle pods. The ship's weapons were crude by 24th century Star Trek standards, but had a cool sort of old-fashioned submarine kind of vibe. Other than that, the ship was pretty much a death trap. Number 7. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701. This was the Starship Enterprise that featured in the original series with Captain Kirk, Spock, and the gang. The ship was launched in the year 2245 under the command of Robert April. We see the Enterprise commanded by Christopher Pike in Star Trek Discovery, and then Kirk took command in 2265. This Constitution-class starship served for 40 years, being refit twice, and it is the Enterprise refit that we see in the Star Trek movies. In the third film, The Search for Spock, the ship is finally destroyed. We see the Kelvin timeline version of the ship in the J.J. Abrams movies. Despite the differences in appearance, J.J. Abrams said the ship should have a, quote, hot rod appearance, it is actually supposed to be the same ship. Number 8. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701A. This ship was another Constitution-class vessel almost identical to the original Enterprise post-refit, and it was launched a few months after the destruction of the original ship. The Enterprise A featured 3 different bridge designs throughout the 3 remaining original cast Star Trek movies. Bridge 1, year 2286 in Star Trek The Voyage Home. Bridge 2, year 2287 in Star Trek The Final Frontier. And Bridge 3 in 2293 in Star Trek The Undiscovered Country. And the Enterprise A seemed to have a sort of Doctor Who TARDIS thing going on. According to the original design, the ship was supposed to only have 21 decks, yet in Star Trek The Final Frontier, you see a deck 78. And in the Kelvin timeline, there was also an Enterprise A that was launched after the original Enterprise was destroyed. Number 9. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701B. This is an Excelsior-class starship that appears at the beginning of Star Trek Generations in a flashback scene. The first ship of this class, the USS Excelsior, was commanded by Captain Sulu. But the Enterprise B was a later refit design of the Excelsior class. The ship was still very similar to the original design with 34 decks, but had some differences on the secondary hull with these fins on the left and right sides. This was the ship that Captain Kirk died on. Not the first time when he fell to his death down a cliff, or when he was brought back to life by the Borg only to sacrifice himself in the book The Return, which was written by William Shatner himself. Yeah, I think William Shatner was just annoyed that he wasn't in Star Trek anymore. But anyway, Kirk was killed in the defector control room on the Enterprise B when it was struck by an energy burst from the mysterious energy ribbon known as the Nexus. Number 10. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701C. This was an Ambassador-class starship that appears in the Next Generation episode Yesterday's Enterprise. The ship travels through a temporary rift to the future where it meets the Enterprise D after taking heavy damage in a battle with the Romulans when it was defending a Klingon outpost. They eventually realize, however, that it was the Enterprise C's sacrifice, she gets destroyed by Romulan ships defending the Klingons, that would lead to an eventual peace between the Klingon Empire and the Federation. Thus, the crew of the Enterprise C bravely go back through the temporal rift to certain death in order to ensure peace between the Klingons and the Federation. And Picard has one of the coolest lines about the Enterprise in this episode.
Let's make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Number 11. The USS Enterprise NCC 1701D. This is the luxury cruise liner style ship that we see in Star Trek The Next Generation. This Galaxy-class ship was over 600 meters long, had 42 decks, and was commanded by a captain who also ran a school for gifted youngsters in upstate New York. capable guy. Now, we talk so much about the Enterprise D in other videos that we won't talk more about it here, but I will put a link to our video 10 little known features of the Enterprise D at the end of this one for you guys to check out. In an alternative future, the Enterprise D gets a refit with an extra warp nacelle and other enhancements. You can see this in the episode All Good Things, the last episode of The Next Generation. Number 12, the USS Enterprise 1701E. This was the ship that replaced the Enterprise D in the regular timeline after she plummeted to her death on Viridian 3. The Enterprise E was a Sovereign-class starship, longer and sleeker than the Enterprise D, with just 26 decks. Gone were the kindergartens, yoga studios, and Michelin star restaurants. And you were left with pure functionality, ready to fight the Borg. The ship was armed to the teeth and was even able to hold its own against the Riemann battleship, the Scimitar. Number 13, the USS Enterprise NCC 1701F. This was an Odyssey-class starship that was launched in the year 2409. The ship only appeared in the Star Trek Online computer game, so perhaps some people watching this will complain that this isn't canon, but seriously guys, there are more important things to worry about, like this.
For the limited edition double-edged lightsaber from Star Wars.
You removed it from its original packaging.
No! It's no longer a collectible!
The design came about when the maker of the game, Cryptic Studios, held a competition for fans to design the next Starship Enterprise. This design was picked in mid-2011 and appeared in the first Star Trek Online mission, Boldly They Rode. And you've got to admit, it's a sexy design. And that brings us to the final and most futuristic Enterprise in this video. Number 14, the USS Enterprise NCC 1701J. This Universe-class ship is from the 26th century and is supposedly 3 kilometers in length. Look, here it is next to the Enterprise F. We only see this ship from the inside in an episode of Enterprise where Captain Archer gets transported into the future. Due to budget constraints, all we see of the ship on the show is this hallway and the exterior design on a computer screen. Well guys, that is our rundown of all the Starship Enterprises in Star Trek. We have lumped some alternate reality versions together with the regular reality, so if you were to split those up even more, you could reach a number even higher than 14. There are also the ISS Enterprise ships in the Terran Empire in the alternate reality. We didn't include those just because their design is basically the same as the regular version of ships that they represent in the regular timeline. Leave your comments below guys, which Enterprise is your favorite? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and do subscribe to Generation Films for more cool videos like this. Bye bye.